Part 106. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1051. Chapter 1051 Man-made or accidental. He thought about it for a while and then whispered, "Your Majesty, the prince's injury is not serious. The swelling there is severe. Now I can only take medicine to treat it and apply medicine to reduce the swelling. As for whether it will delay the inheritance of the family line, we have to wait for 2 months. Let's see how the recovery goes." The emperor's face changed at that time, and he made many choices to find a consort for his daughter. Could it be that he just became a eunuch? When the assistant doctor saw this, he immediately changed his tune. Of course, the prince is young and practices martial arts on weekdays, so he will recover quickly. There should be no obstacles. I will go there every day, diagnose and treat carefully, and report any problems at any time. The emperor reluctantly nodded and waved his hand. As if he had been pardoned, the assistant doctor immediately bowed his head and walked out backwards. Manager Yi bravely stepped forward to pour tea for the emperor, and cautiously persuaded him, "Your Majesty, the matter has been resolved, you should be patient." As the deputy doctor said, the prince is still young and may get better soon. The emperor took a sip of tea, squinted his eyes and pondered for a while, and then asked, "You saw Lu Zong's injuries with your own eyes, and you didn't lie?" Manager Yi was stunned for a moment, then quickly responded, back to the emperor, "I didn't see the prince's injuries with my own eyes, but the prince's crotch had the mark of a horse's hoof, and his forehead was so painful that he was sweating, and his face was pale. I must have, can't pretend." The emperor sighed and shook his head, "I just think this is such a coincidence. Just when I was about to tell him about the date of marriage, he suffered such a disaster." Manager Yi continued to persuade, "Your Majesty, if this is really an accident, you are lucky. After all, we haven't gotten married yet, otherwise, Your Highness the third princess would have." "That's true." The emperor drank the tea and ordered, "Don't let the third princess leave the palace recently, especially the Lu family. We can't let her take a step. We will wait until Lu Zong recovers from her injury." "Yes, Your Majesty." Manager Yi quickly agreed, then retreated, looking for a clever little to go to Sujintan to report the news. The third princess has a bad temper, and she is afraid that she will cause trouble after hearing this. "I can't say, I'd better talk to the princess first. Someone will stop the princess if something happens." Fortunately, the good news was not here, otherwise she would have sent 2 big thank you. "I can't think of her in good things. It's such an embarrassment that she, a little girl, has to get involved in it." At this moment, the melon fields in Broken Gold Beach are bustling with activity. Because of the popularity among the people, the melon fields were sold out as soon as they opened. If the village chief hadn't specially set aside 2 acres of land and delayed planting for half a month, I'm afraid the third princess wouldn't have had the wonderful experience of sitting in the melon shack and eating melons. Ji Yan found 2 big straw hats from somewhere, put one on himself, and put the other on the third princess's head. Shui Ling smiled and took out a jade melon from the shack. The jade melon was wet and had been placed in the bucket for a long time. The third princess was eager to give it a try, so she insisted on taking the long knife and killed the melon with her own hands. The bright red juice flowed horizontally, and the fragrance swirled into the nose, quickly dispelling the heat in everyone's hearts, and they were just looking forward to eating a piece of it. Of course the third princess picked up a piece and took the first bite. Ji Yan first gave a piece to the old village chief, then Shui Ling, Shui Yun and Kai Yun, and finally her own. The old village chief smiled and was very happy. Even though Shui Ling and Shui Yun are used to it, their master will never forget their contribution to everything they eat, but they are still very grateful. Kai Yun, on the other hand, was frightened. There is no reason why the master should not eat it but give it to the slaves first. Ji Yan didn't think too much about it. In her opinion, the visitor was a guest, and she must know that what everyone was stepping on was her fiefdom and her melon garden. After eating a piece of cold and sweet jade melon, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. The old village chief was worried about leaving the villagers to work, so he left quickly after chatting for a few words. Those melon vines that have finished picking the jade melons will now be uprooted, the land will be plowed and ridden again, and then a new crop of cabbage and radishes will be planted. In winter, it is a good food whether it is eaten by people, fed to pigs, chickens, or even horses. The word farmer is synonymous with hard work. As long as you are not lazy, there is endless work to do all year round. The third princess ate happily, and finally sat on a wicker chair with her knees folded. She watched the villagers busy from a distance and couldn't help but sigh. I have always heard that farmers only work hard for 3 seasons a year and can rest for a few months in winter, which is a special blessing. I realized when I saw it today that it was not the case at all. These 3 seasons of hard work are as much as the 3 years of hard work for others. Jiyan collected the melon seeds and said, when you really study hard for 3 years, you will say that the most difficult thing in the world is studying, and farmers at least have time to rest. Everything is different, only when you experience it personally can you know how hard it is. I know, old scholar. The third princess accepted the instruction, but her mouth was not forgiving. She smiled and made faces at the good news. She is obviously younger than me, but she lectures me every time. She is more nagging than grandma. Humph, I'd like to say the same to you. Don't you know how hot it is here? A waste of saliva is a waste of life. Jiyan was rude and retorted on the spot, causing the third princess to hug her and start acting coquettishly. No, no, I want you to nag me every day. I'm happy even if my ears get calluses. Everyone laughed along with him, and even the melon vines on the side began to dance in the direction of the warm wind. At this time, the young sent by Manager Yi arrived. He wanted to spread the good news, but the third princess was also present. After hesitation, he wanted to hide for a while and look for an opportunity before talking. But there was only one melon shed in the melon field, and he couldn't hide there unless he shrunk into an ant. The third princess saw a figure in the corner of her eye. She thought she had caught a thief, so she excitedly called Shui Ling to catch him. After a while, Shui Ling ran back with the little eunuch. Jiyan saw something was wrong and quickly asked, where did the little father-in-law come from? Is there something wrong? It was Kaiun who recognized him and said, this is Xiaoquinzi who is serving at Manager Yi's side. The third princess was surprised and shouted, Manager Yi just told me if he wanted to eat the melon, why did he send someone to steal it? Agawako didn't want his master to break his legs, so he quickly knelt down to clarify. Your Highness the princess, that, little man is here to deliver a message, that, manager please ask the princess and the princess to return to the palace early. Go back to the palace. The third princess was the first to be unhappy and asked, we have only been out for 2 hours, why are you asking us to go back? We also told Manager Yi when we left the palace. Agawazu remembered what Manager Yi had told him, but he couldn't say it on this occasion anyway. His face turned red from holding back, and he scratched his head and ears like a skinny monkey. The third princess couldn't understand. It was hot and she would get angry when she felt anxious. Jiyan said in time, Manager Yi called us back, there must be a reason. We also played for a while, why don't the princess lead people to pick more jade melons and golden fruits, and we will take them back to the palace. The third princess had no choice but to take Shui Ling, Shui Yun and Kaiun to pick melons. Jiyan then asked the young eunuch, did something happen in the palace? End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1052. Chapter 1052, What Are You Afraid of? The little was afraid that the third princess would come back again, so he ignored the embarrassment and said quickly, the emperor originally sent the steward to invite Prince Lu into the palace, but as soon as the steward arrived at the Lu family, he saw Prince Lu being kicked in the crotch by a war horse. The deputy Dr. Zheng and the imperial doctors went to several places, and they all said that the injury was serious and that he needed to recover for 2 months. The emperor ordered that the princess will not be allowed to leave the palace recently, so the steward sent the villain to come quickly to invite you and the princess back to the palace. Ji Yan didn't react for a long time, and when he woke up, his face turned red. This, Lu Zong is not useless, is he? Otherwise, the emperor cannot be so anxious to ask the third princess to go back. I am afraid that he is worried that the third princess will hear the news and run to the Lu family regardless, which would be embarrassing. To put it more seriously, if Lu Zong cannot recover, the emperor will definitely not be able to marry his daughter to a eunuch. Ahem, Ji Yan coughed twice and told the young eunuch, "Go and have a rest first and eat a golden fruit to quench your thirst. We will return to the palace immediately after picking the melons." "Thank you, princess," the little breathed a long sigh of relief and was extremely grateful. "Fortunately, the princess is here, otherwise I really don't know how to persuade the princess to come back." Ji Yan smiled bitterly, considering the third princess' deep love for Lu Zong, she could only bite the bullet and give it a try. "I hope nothing will happen again on the way back to the palace. However, I'm really afraid of what will happen." They picked a dozen jade melons and 2 baskets of golden fruits. The third princess was so satisfied that she didn't bother to stay a little longer. Ji Yan hurriedly gave the old village chief a few words and then got on the carriage. As he was entering the city, a carriage broke down at the city gate. For a time, those who were in could not get in, and those who were out could not get out. Everyone was forced to gather together, and naturally they had to gossip a bit to pass the boring time. "Hey, have you heard, something big happened?" "What happened?" "The northern expedition failed." "Bah, crow's mouth, of course not. What is that surprises you so much?" "It's our future prince consort Lu. I heard he was injured while riding a horse." "What?" Before the 2 gossips could finish speaking, the third princess who happened to be sitting in the carriage next door heard clearly. She became anxious at that time and raised her hand to push open the window. Fortunately, in order to go to the melon field to pick melons today, and not wanting to disturb too many villagers, Ji Yan suggested taking an ordinary 2-horse carriage and did not use the princess's carriage. Otherwise, the people gossiping next to them might know right away that they were talking right and wrong in front of their fiancés. Ji Yan pulled the third princess back and frowned slightly. Logically speaking, since Lu Zong suffered such an embarrassing injury, he should keep it secret and let those who know about it keep it a secret. How come it is now known to everyone? The 2 gossips next to him were not affected in the slightest and continued to talk lively. "Is Prince Lu seriously injured? His arms and legs were broken, right?" "I don't know, I just heard that it is very serious and it will take 2 to 3 months. The person who helped treat the injury was the palace doctor, and no one else knows the details." "Then it must be a fracture. It will hurt the muscles and bones for 100 days. "Maybe, but it's quite unlucky. The Lu family is a family of military generals, and Prince Lu actually fell off his horse. It's really embarrassing." "That's right, but he has been studying since he was a child, and he has been taking scientific examinations all the way, so he can be forgiven for his poor kung fu." The third princess couldn't listen anymore and started making a fuss. "Good news, I want to see brother Lu, let's go to Lu's house." Ji Yan thought hard and tried to persuade, "I'm afraid I can't go for the time being. I don't know how injured Prince Lu is. If you go over suddenly, the Lu family will be busy receiving you, which will delay Prince Lu's recovery. Secondly, the emperor is looking for you to come back to the palace. I'm afraid he has something to say. If it is a big matter, it would be bad to delay for this." The third princess was a little shaken. Shui Ling took the opportunity to help persuade, "Didn't these people say that in the palace? Has the imperial physician examined Prince Lu? If the princess is concerned, she can go back and ask the imperial physician whether Prince Lu is seriously injured. These words reminded the third princess, and she quickly urged the coachman. Unable to do anything, the driver turned his horse around and ran for an extra quarter of an hour until he reached another city gate and successfully entered the city. The third princess returned to the palace. She didn't even have time to change her clothes, so she hurriedly ran to the imperial study. The good news didn't stop her anymore. She slowly returned to Highland Palace, changed her clothes, and just drank a cup of herbal tea. The third princess came back with a red face and complicated eyes. As soon as she saw the good news of the chairs swinging leisurely under the eaves of the corridor, she ran over with her skirt in hand and complained, "Good news, did you already know about it? Why didn't you stop me?" Jiyan rolled her eyes and responded unceremoniously, "If I hadn't stopped you, you would have gone to Lu's house to pick off someone's pants by now." "Oh, what are you talking about?" The third princess stomped her feet in embarrassment and quickly covered Jiyan's mouth. The two laughed and laughed for a while. The third princess sat down next to Jiyan, hugged her arm and sighed softly. "Jiyan, do you think Brother Lu and I are not destined to be together? My father also said that we should get married soon, but Brother Lu was injured again." Jiyan's eyes flickered, which was why she was suspicious. Luzon was injured at the very right time, and he was injured at such a crucial point. The emperor may let his daughter marry a husband who is lame and has a broken hand, but he will not let her marry a eunuch. On normal days, she would have thought it was an accident. After all, no man would joke about what he has done. If he misses, there is no place to regret it. But having known Luzon's thoughts before, she was not sure again. Fate is so mysterious, no one can tell for sure. Jiyan also sighed and asked tentatively, "If your marriage to Brother Lu fails, will you be sad? You don't eat or drink, you live or die." "Of course not, I am a princess, how can I have to live or die?" The third princess stared. Obviously this assumption insulted her pride. But then, she drooped her head again, "But I won't get married, and there is no better person in the world than Brother Lu." Jiyan's heart shrank, and she quickly changed her subject. "No kidding, let's make a fruit plate and send it to Uncle Huang to relieve the heat. I'll do the styling, and you dig the fruit balls." "Okay," the third princess cheered up and replied, "I just saw that my father has lost weight again. I wonder if it's because of the bitter summer? When cooking in the evening, let's make 2 more of his favorite dishes. Bar. Okay, Uncle Huang likes salty and fresh tastes. Let's cook a pot of red dates and millet porridge to match it, which will be more nourishing to the stomach." Jiyan agreed with a smile, easily diverting the princess's attention. Soon, the emperor received a strange and funny fruit plate. The jasper melon skin was carved into the shape of a hedgehog. There was a slit on the back of the hedgehog. It was full of large pearl-like melon balls, grapes, strawberries, etc., with bright colors. Sweet and fresh. It is really pleasing to the eye no matter how you look at it, and it tastes refreshing and delicious. Manager Yi and Eunuch Fen were both present. The two of them worked together and almost boasted about the fruit plate. The emperor was so happy that he moved a lot of good things to Highland Palace with a wave of his hand. Unfortunately, the emperor only ate a few melon before he vomited. General Manager Yi immediately kicked out the rest of the people in the room and personally served the emperor to rinse his mouth. The emperor was silent for a while, then called out to the man in grey and sent the fruit plate to Zilong Pavilion. Then he took out all the lists. The world was supposed to be peaceful for a few days, but because the princess was prevented from getting married, it continued to cause a storm. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1053. Chapter 1053, Women are not allowed to stay in college. At dinner time, Jiyan wrote the menu and cooked several delicious dishes. The third princess actually rolled up her sleeves and wanted to make a bowl of tonic soup. Jiyan had no choice but to ask Shui Yun to wash and cut the ingredients and throw them into the casserole. The third princess added water, looked at the fire for a while, wiped her face with ashes, and even considered cooking in person. Needless to say, this tonic soup was sent out of the palace and entered the Lu family gate while it was still dark. The meals delivered to the imperial study are made by Jiyan's craftsmanship. I wonder if the emperor would sigh with emotion if he knew about this. Because they had something on their mind, after dinner, the third princess and Jiyan were not in the mood to play, so they each went back to their rooms to rest early. Jiyan had just chased Shui Ling and Shui Yun outside and was about to go into the space to have a look, when Muju came back covered in dust. The good news was a surprise. She has been on tenterhooks in the past few days. Although she knows that he is highly skilled in martial arts and smart and alert, no one can tell what dangers he will encounter when he travels thousands of miles back and forth to Jiangbei. Now that people are back, they are all beards and tails, which is really better than anything else. Jiyan excused himself that he was not full after dinner, so he quickly went to the kitchen to get some food and drinks. When he returned to the house, Muju was already asleep on the couch. Shui Yun followed the house with the tray and was startled when he saw Muju, but he quickly retreated out with a wink, guarding the door tightly. Muju woke up quickly, perhaps smelling the aroma of the food. He wiped his hands and face randomly, and then his chopsticks flew away. Jiyan guessed that he was hungry, so she kept helping him add food and vegetables without asking a word. Muju ate until the bowl was empty, and drank half a pot of herbal tea before he breathed a sigh of relief. "I'm starving to death. Along the way, I was beating horses and drawing cakes to satisfy my hunger, so I could barely endure it until I reached Zindu." Jiyan felt a little distressed, but couldn't help but think about Jiangbei, and asked, "Are my father and adoptive father okay? How is the war? Are they injured? How are they eating, drinking, and housing?" Muju laughed when he heard this and responded, "The Marquis and the fourth master asked me the same questions when they saw me. You are indeed a family." Jiyan glared at him angrily and urged, "Speak quickly." Okay, you are short-tempered. Listen to me and explain to you in detail." Muju sat on the couch, starting from sneaking into the food team, and then he followed his future father-in-law and killed many barbarians. Reluctant to rush back. Hearing the good news, he frowned and did not respond for a long time. Muju coughed dryly and asked, "Don't you believe that the people who robbed the grain came from the southwest border?" Jiyan sighed, her delicate brows furrowed, and her slender green fingers pulling at the ends of her braids irritably. "It's not that I don't believe it, but I don't want to believe it. My eldest brother is working as an official near the southwest border, and Prince Lu has also been with our family for many years, and we have always gotten along well until the evidence is conclusive. No one wants to believe it. Furthermore, the Northern Expedition is related to the unification of the entire Tianwu and to the peaceful life of all the people. Even if Prince Lu has any selfish motives, how can he involve the Northern Expedition army? It's so unreasonable." "You really know that he has selfish motives?" Muju sat up straight and smiled happily. "I heard that the emperor asked Prince Lu to marry the third princess, but Prince Lu was suddenly kicked by a horse and became an eunuch. He was very cruel to him." "Ah." Jiyan was surprised at this time. "Didn't you just return to Zindu? You already know all this. You must know that the Lu family and the emperor have hidden it from outsiders, and no one knows the truth." Muju was proud. "I used to work as a secret guard and I also knew a few brothers. Although they were not close friends, I could still get some information. Besides, when I finally come back after being away for such a long time, I always want to ask you how you are doing in the palace and if anyone is bullying you. The good news is filled with a little bit of sweetness and joy because of this care and attention." She quickly changed her subject and asked, whether this was an accident or man-made. No one knows for the time being. But I was forced to be caught in the middle. If the third princess knew about it, I'm afraid it would damage our friendship with her. So, I have been in a dilemma recently, and I don't know if I should make a point. If I were to make a breakthrough, I don't have any actual evidence, and if I make a fuss, I'll be accused of being sentimental. But if I don't expose it, if the third princess finds out one day, she will think that I am hiding something from her and have other agenda. Ji-Yan irritably pulled up a carrot-shaped pillow and tugged at the green radish tassels. Her cheeks were bulging with anger. She looked like a fat rabbit, which was particularly cute. Muju was used to seeing her being smart, calm, witty and composed, but this appearance was particularly rare. So, he refrained from speaking and looked at it a few more times with a smile. Ji-Yan looked up occasionally and saw that his eyes were as bright as a big bad wolf seeing a white rabbit. How could he not guess his thoughts? At that time, he blushed with embarrassment and started to chase people away. Go and have a rest, we'll talk about it later. No, no, Muju quickly stopped laughing and got down to business. The Marquis and the fourth master want you to go to Quanzhou immediately and take care of the old lady nearby. Even if they don't tell me, they can avoid the trouble in Kyoto. No, Ji-Yan shook her head resolutely at that time. The situation in Zindu is changing day by day. Even in the palace, I can send news to my family in time. Besides, during the half-month you have been in Jiangbei, that person. Ji-Yingsu pointed in the direction of the imperial study and whispered, that person has already begun to clean up the forces on the Queen Mother's side, and has taken control of the imperial concubine and the second prince. Tianwu is about to change. If it hadn't been for the man who wanted the third princess to get married and then started killing people, the palace would have been filled with blood. However, with Prince Lu's injury, it is impossible for the third princess to get married earlier, and she is afraid that she will take action soon. At this time, if you are not careful, it is easy for the whole family to get involved. My second uncle and Mr. Wen are outside, and I am inside, and we cooperate with each other, which makes it easier to survive this great change safely. Muju was also a little surprised. Although he inquired about some information, he did not have time to ask comprehensively. I also told Mr. Ho that you would not leave. Mr. Ho finally said that you should act according to your own ideas, but safety comes first. Ji-Yan felt bad when she thought of her adoptive father who loved her as if he were a ball in his eye. No matter how dangerous it is here, it is not as dangerous as the battlefield. After the harem and the former dynasty are over, I am afraid that I will be thinking about the unparalleled achievements of unifying the country. When the time comes, my adoptive father and my father. She didn't finish what she said, but the meaning was self-evident. Muju couldn't see how worried she was, so he thought about it and opened the window. Ji-Yan thought he was going to leave, but she didn't want him to pull her arm and jumped out. Before she could scream, Muju picked her up and jumped onto the roof. What are you doing? Ji-Yan carefully held her back, her legs weak from fear. Although she learned kung fu for a few days when she was a child, she was lazy and playful, and Shui Ling and Shui Yun were around, so she forgot about it early. At this moment, I was suddenly flying over the walls and it was really hard to enjoy it. Muju helped her sit down safely, then lay down next to her and said with a smile, when I was a child, my mother was not in good health, but she smiled happily every day. As long as she could get out of bed, she would take me with her. Play, make me delicious food. She said, live a good life every day. It's okay to be happy and angry, so why not be more happy? So, put aside all the troubles and let's enjoy the moonlight together. It would be a pity to sigh with such a beautiful scenery. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1054. Chapter 1054. The battle horn sounded. Ji Yin couldn't bear to let him down when he took the initiative to talk about old things. After thinking about it, he simply lay down. During the day, the sun made the tiles very hot, but at this time, there was still residual warmth, and it was not cold, so it was very comfortable to lie down on it. The evening breeze gently ruffled the willow branches and brought the fragrance to their noses, soaking into their hearts and spleens. The pure night sky is in front of me, without a single star, only the disk-like light yellow moon hanging high, lonely and proud. The cicadas that had been noisy all day finally took a break, replaced by the bustle of unknown night insects whispering gossip. Ji Yin watched and listened quietly. She originally wanted to say something, but her eyelids slowly became heavy. Shui Yun stood guard under the eaves of the corridor, raising his head from time to time to listen to the sound. Finally, the two people who were waiting for the roof jumped down, and the master was actually held in their arms. She was anxious at that time. As soon as she stepped forward, she heard Muju say softly, "The princess is asleep." Shui Yun had no choice but to pick up his master and take him back to the house himself. Muju touched his nose, smiled awkwardly, and disappeared into the dark night. After a good night's sleep, I woke up to the sound of birds chirping, stretched my waist, and then remembered what happened before going to bed last night, so I quickly sat up. Shui Ling heard the commotion, opened the door and came in to bring warm water to wash up. Ji Yin tentatively asked, "Is there nothing wrong last night?" "It's nothing, the palace is very quiet. Kaiun just sent a message saying that the third princess wants you to come and have breakfast together." Ji Yin breathed a sigh of relief, happily picked out an ivory shirt and skirt, paired with a pink pearl headband, and then went to eat next door with a smile. Not to mention that Highland Palace was as cheerful and peaceful as ever, but at today's court meeting, everyone was shocked by the sudden change. Originally I thought that today we would discuss the drought for a few words like before, but in the end nothing happened. Unexpectedly, the emperor suddenly convicted 3 officials. Although these 3 officials are all 4th-grade officials and are not considered to be high-ranking officials, they all have actual duties and are in charge of important errands. For example, one of them is the director of the equipment department of the Ministry of War. Of course the 3 of them were not convinced, and they all knelt down and cried out for injustice. "Your Majesty, although you want me to die, I have to die. But for the sake of Tianwu, I have been loyal to the emperor for many years. You can't punish me without any reason. Wouldn't it chill the hearts of all loyal ministers?" Another person also echoed in panic and annoyance, "Yes, Your Majesty. I have been working hard and doing my best on my errands. Even if I don't get any credit, I still have hard work. Even if you hate me, you should let me die." The last person was even more indignant, "Your Majesty, I refuse to obey. If I don't give you a reason today, I will be killed here." Although the civil and military officials felt that the 3 of them were a bit rude, they were also a little sad in their hearts. They did not want to encourage the emperor's arrogance at this time, otherwise the emperor would treat them like cabbage and chop off whoever he wanted. So, everyone fell silent. The emperor smiled and looked at everyone on the dragon throne, and even opened his mouth to cheer. Okay, I never knew that the civil and military forces in the DPRK and China are so united. This is the joy of our heavenly military and the joy of the people. It's just that you may have used your strength in the wrong place today. As the king of a country, I naturally have to have conclusive evidence for whoever I want to deal with, otherwise how can I convince the public?" After saying that, he waved his hand, and Manager Yi came forward with the book in hand and read it loudly. Ling Changrong, Director of the Arms Department of the Ministry of War, privately transported 500 long knives and 1,000 spears to the northern barbarians in March of the 87th year of Tianwu. He received 30,000 taels of dirty silver, a qualitative change, a private collection of 10 boxes of refined iron ingots totaling 8,000 kilograms. One by one, there are more than 30 items listed, all of which are all the crimes of the three criminals from the past to the present. And every crime is enough for them to confiscate their homes and exterminate their families. Cold sweat broke out on the heads of the three of them like spring water, their faces were pale, their spines could no longer hold up, and they all fell to the ground softly. It's not that they don't want to defend themselves, it's just that the crimes are listed too carefully. Even when they were still in Jiangbei, they had already been investigated before the capital was moved. The civil and military officials were also shocked. They guessed that the three people had dirty butts, but they did not expect that they had committed the serious crime of betraying the country and collaborating with the enemy. Not to mention the loyal ministers and generals who still have some justice in their hearts, even the relatives and friends who originally wanted to intercede on their behalf also silently retreated and hid in the crowd, for fear of being implicated by them. The emperor saw everything in his eyes and snorted coldly and said, "Being so unfaithful and unjust, betraying the country for glory, is a heinous crime. Order Dali Temple to conduct a strict and severe investigation, sentence the case as soon as possible, and behead the whole family at Keishikao as a warning to others." Everyone gasped when they heard this. It was said that Dali Temple was going to try it, but since the result of beheading had already been decided, there was no need to investigate. The three guilty ministers immediately panicked. They were all dressed up when they went out in the morning, and they were sitting in a sedan chair to go to court. In the blink of an eye, they could not return home. Not only did he become a prisoner, he was also a prisoner who was bound to die. No matter what, they can't accept it. At this time, someone risked his own life to remind them, "If you have anything else to explain, please take the initiative to tell me, and the emperor may be able to spare your life." The three of them were a little confused and hesitant. Fortunately, one of them woke up in time and hurriedly climbed out of the queue on his knees, shouting loudly, "Your Majesty, I am guilty, but I only obeyed the instructions of the people behind my back. Otherwise, how could I have the courage to sacrifice my family and the country for my own selfish interests, regardless? The Queen Mother asked me to do this. Oh, I was confused for a moment, please forgive me, Your Majesty." The emperor's face was full of surprise and anger, and he cursed loudly, "How dare you? As my mother, how could the Queen Mother instruct you to collude with the enemy country? You must know that the barbarians invaded and forced Tianwu to move the capital because of the support of these weapons. If it was the Queen Mother who instigated it, it would be a heinous crime. Even my mother must be punished. This is a false accusation, absolutely impossible. There is no fool in this world, especially officials who have been in the court for many years. They wish that their shrewd hair had exquisite orifices." Your Majesty's tone is irritable, but inside and outside his words, he wants to punish the Queen Mother. The other two officials no longer hesitated and hurriedly stepped forward, shouting the same injustice. "Your Majesty, I am unjustly accused. I followed the Empress Dowager's orders when I raised taxes privately in Sichuan Prefecture, and all the money collected was given to the Empress Dowager. I have evidence in my hand. Yes, Your Majesty, even if you gave me 10,000 courages, I would not dare to embezzle the money for disaster relief. It was all ordered by the Queen Mother. It was also agreed by the Queen Mother that I would stay in Kyoto as an official." For a time, the three of them were fighting for their lives, and every sentence they spoke was an accusation against the Queen Mother. The other civil and military officials lowered their heads, regretting 10,000 times why they didn't ask for sick leave today. The previous guesses were absolutely correct. Commander Chang's death and Taifu Cai's death were not accidents at all. They were the trumpets blown by the emperor to start cleaning up the court. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1055. Chapter 1055, A Big Tree Attracts the Wind. Before noon, the court meeting finally ended. 100 civil and military officials walked out of the palace gate one after another, all with bad expressions on their faces. Some people are anxious, some are frowning, and some are pretending to be calm but failing. The gentlemen and coachmen who were waiting outside were watching with trepidation, fearing that something might go wrong and that the master would get into trouble when something was obviously going on. A few officials couldn't hold themselves back any longer, so they sat in a carriage and started discussing in a low voice. Today's posture doesn't look like that person's impromptu initiative. Of course, do you need to say this? That person has been planning for who knows how long, and it all just broke out today. This is about to completely break up with the Queen Mother. Since you want to completely break up with her, why did you try so hard to defend the Queen Mother just now? In another carriage not far away, Li Laoer, Mr. Wen and Luz Haiheng were also talking about this matter. Li Laoer also looked bad and sighed. The emperor cherishes his feathers more and more. Everyone in the world knows that the Queen Mother has been involved in politics and seizing power for many years now. That the emperor has conclusive evidence, it is justified to punish the Queen Mother. But he still wants to be greedy for the word filial piety and refuses to leave any stigma in the history books. Yes, just watch. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, or even the next 10.5 months, people will continue to come forward to urge the emperor to enforce the law impartially and punish the Queen Mother, and then the emperor will reluctantly take action. Mr. Wen smiled a little. Satire. Luz Haiheng also said, I used to think that our emperor was benevolent, and he even valued affection and righteousness, which was different from the previous emperors. After all, he tolerated the Queen Mother for so many years, and he treated the marquis, the courtiers, and the people very well. Good. But now it seems that he doesn't like benevolence, but has to be benevolent now that his life is short. He no longer wants to be benevolent. I don't know what will happen in the future. The three of them all had complicated moods. They were not only worried about the chaos in government affairs and being unable to protect their own families. I am even more worried that after the court is cleaned up, the emperor's next target will be the marquis far away in Jiangbei. The carriage kicked, and soon it reached the intersection. Luz Haiheng jumped out and rushed home to report to his old father and discuss ideas along the way. Li Laoer and Mr. Wen returned to the earl's mansion, and the storm that had been brewing for a long time was about to begin. To avoid panic among family members, always let them know quietly. At this time, try to reduce the sense of presence as much as possible, and be careful not to be involved when lightning strikes someone. Fortunately, Jie Huan runs a restaurant and has nothing to do with the court. The academy has been closed down, and Li Lao-san, Brother Mao, brothers Hyman Jiajia, and Guo Wenai Yuan are all staying in a corner without being affected. At the Earl's mansion, Wanner directly complained of illness, did not see guests or go out, and restrained the servants. At Broken Gold Beach, there is an old village chief sitting in charge. It just so happened that the hot springs had a drought and the water flow was getting smaller and smaller. They closed the business and blocked the intersection. Broken Gold Beach was a small world of its own, and it couldn't be safer. It's not just the Li family. At this moment, all the wealthy families, civil servants, and generals in the city are all in a panic. The Li family is just a migrant family, who fled from a famine-stricken family. They don't know many people here, and those they do know are mostly farmers in the village. But they are not. Over the years, in order to survive better, I have enjoyed more rights and wealth. His son married his daughter, his niece married his nephew, and even his sister-in-law was sent to Shangwen's house as a concubine. It's not impossible to have fun occasionally, drink wine together, and brag. Now, these have become a source of fear for them. Who knew that the people who drank together were secretly related to the three families that were condemned? Who knows who was bribed by the Queen Mother to join the secret camp and will be liquidated immediately? Who knows who has a bad mind and jumps to the limelight at this time, but it will bring bad luck to the emperor. The tree has big roots and deep roots. While it enjoys more sunshine, rain, and dew, it also attracts more wind. It seemed that in an instant, the bustling Zindu street suddenly became quiet. The young lady who was shopping ran away and lost her embroidered shoes, and the young man who was waving his fan threw away his golden belt. There are so many waves on weekdays, but now there is so much panic. The street vendors carried their burdens and carefully stayed under the eaves for fear of being knocked over. What happened today? Is it the wrong way to open it? Bianjian is as full as ever. It's almost noon, and the boy who squeezes the jade melon juice has to twist his wrist into a fan before he can attend to it. After a while of busy work, the guests in the private rooms on the second floor came down one after another, paid their bills and left quickly. Some guests didn't even get the juice, but they gave them exactly the money. The boy didn't know what was going on, and was about to run to the backyard to report the news. Shopkeeper Peng came out and greeted everyone, "Just clean up, there won't be too many customers in the afternoon. Just shout in front of the door, and the snacks at the counter are half price for sale, sell it out early and save it from being left to sour overnight." The boy was very curious and wanted to ask more questions, but shopkeeper Peng slapped him on the back of the head. "Hurry up and get to work, go home early tonight and bring 2 kilograms of milk cake back to your mother, I will be filial to her." "Hey." "Thank you, shopkeeper," the boy didn't dare to say more, and ran to shout with a smile. Bianjian is a shining gold-lettered sign in Zindu. If it weren't for the high price of dim sum and their specialization in harvesting the pockets of the rich, I am afraid that all the dim sum shops would have been closed down by them. At this moment, as soon as the news of the half price was announced, not to mention the passers-by who didn't know what was going on, even the neighbors on the left and right came to join in the fun. In less than half an hour, the snacks on the counter and in the kitchen were empty. Similarly, the hot pot restaurant and pagoda garden not far away also ended their business early. At this time, everyone on the street finally got the news, and the world became completely quiet. There are never secrets in the palace, this is the consensus of everyone. Even though In's Highland Palace, Jiyan and the third princess restrained the maids and eunuchs, closed the door and made up their minds to live their own lives, they still heard about the events of the previous dynasty. The third princess held up her skirt and walked around all over the place. "Is my father going to start a war with the old witch? The old witch has been domineering for so many years, will my father be plotted by her? What should I do?" She saved Jiyan's arm and begged, "Jiyan, can you help my father?" Jiyan was so surprised that she almost broke down on the spot. "Sister, I'm a little clever, but it's okay to be naughty and playful with you. If you really get involved in such a big thing, I'm afraid it won't be enough to fill the teeth of those old foxes. Please spare my life." The third princess was discouraged and sat on the rocking chair next to her. She said dejectedly, "You don't know. I heard my mother say it, and I don't know whether it's true or not. It seems that before I was born, my father also had a fight with that old witch. In the end, my father lost. One of my eldest brothers and his mother and concubine were killed at that time. Of course, they didn't say that to the outside world, but it was tricked by the old witch. My father has been bullied for this for so many years, but they have gotten along well with each other now. I don't know what happened, and they started fighting again. No wonder my father wanted me to get married as soon as possible. He must have been afraid that I would be like the eldest prince." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1056. Chapter 1056, The wall fell and everyone pushed it. Jiyan sighed, and the hair on the third princess' forehead exploded. "Silly girl, you think too much. Let's not talk about what happened back then, after all, no one saw it with their own eyes. It's just that now, under the governance of Uncle Huang, Tianwu is in good weather, the country is peaceful and the people are safe, and even Jiangbei is about to be recovered. The world is at home, and Uncle Huang's prestige is boundless. It is no longer the time when he was controlled by the Queen Mother not long after he ascended the throne. And most importantly, why don't you think about it, how long has it been since the Queen Mother asked us to pay her respects? The third princess blinked several times, suddenly jumped up, and shouted in surprise. Yes, yes, she hasn't caused trouble with us for a long time, has she been controlled by the father? Good News can't pick up the topic, so I just need to mention a few words. She stretched and said, "What's for dinner?" Even though it's hot, I still want to stew braised pork with salt and pepper prawns and sweet and sour short ribs. The cold dish is spinach with nuts and a peacock in full bloom, okay. Okay, okay, the third princess nodded happily, as long as what you cook is delicious. She lost her worries and her appetite returned. She kept urging Jiyan to cook, and even begged, "Jiyan, can you help me make some soup?" "No," Jiyan refused decisively, "if you want to give it away, just do it yourself. My help is nothing. What if outsiders find out and think I covet your brother Lu? I will not be wronged. My future husband must be an unparalleled hero. He must step on colorful auspicious clouds and wear golden armor to marry me." Good News expresses one's feelings in the guise of a joke. It's a pity that the third princess didn't understand it at all. She ruffled her hair and laughed until her stomach hurt. "Young girl, you want to get married so early, are you talking about golden armor and colorful auspicious clouds? Don't think I don't know, this is the monkey in the story you told me. If you dare to marry a monkey, your whole family will go crazy." Jiyan rolled her eyes and gave up completely. For someone like the third princess who is as thick as a road, just tell her directly from now on, don't take it for granted. A pure waste of emotion. The two little sisters went to the kitchen laughing and joking. When dusk fell, dinner was ready and the food box with soup was sent to Lu's house. Of course, Shuiyun still made the soup, and the third princess moved her mouth, but the good news was not mixed with a finger. After eating and drinking, we played cards for a while, and checked the door as usual. If there were no problems, everyone rested. Jiyan half opened the window again, holding her chin, looking at Muju across the table, eating big mouthfuls of white rice and braised pork. The red gauze meat was cut into mahjong-sized pieces and stewed until soft. The moment you pick up a piece, the meat trembles and drips with fat, which really makes you want to swallow it. Muju was satisfied with his meal, but he had not forgotten the good news and gossip. "I went to the Lu family to see for myself. Prince Lu is really treacherous and pretends to be impeccable. I really can't tell whether his injuries are real or fake. When I have free time in the future, I must." Halfway through speaking, he raised his head and met Jiyan's slightly narrowed eyes. He suddenly woke up and explained with an awkward smile, "I was just curious for a moment, curious. And I have done all the business, so I'm just on my way to Lu's house." Jiyan snorted and suddenly remembered what the third princess said. Whether she can marry a hero in the future is not certain. But, monkey, I'm afraid it's really possible. Muju didn't know yet that his romantic and bohemian soul had been labeled as a funny monkey. At this moment, he finally got down to business. "My uncle said that he will take sick leave tomorrow and will be staying at the Earl's mansion, and the Lu family is not prepared to get involved." Only Mr. Wen was very interested. He said that the court cannot be without the eyes of the family, and he would follow it from beginning to end. Jiyan nodded. The second uncle was a sinecure, and no one said anything when he was sick. In the Lu family, Mrs. Lu has been sick for a long time. Everyone knows whether he is critically ill. Lu's Haiheng is a filial son, and he should wait at his bedside. Only Mr. Wen, the censor, known as the mouthpiece of the court, will definitely not be able to escape in such a busy time. This arrangement is the best. The good news is relieved, and the family also feels it is appropriate. But plans never change quickly, or the tree wants to be still but the wind keeps coming. At the small court meeting one day later, it was revealed that another person was still instructed by the Queen Mother and what evil deeds he had done was clearly listed. But the difference is that 7 or 8 officials came out to criticize the Queen Mother in an impassioned and slobbery manner, begging the emperor to put aside the feelings between mother and son and to uphold the order of the dynasty. These are smart people, or people who think the situation at hand is profitable. From the meeting the day before yesterday to now, if the Queen Mother wanted to fight back, she would have taken action long ago. The reason why she is so quiet is that the Queen Mother has been stripped of her claws and has even been controlled. When the wall falls and everyone pushes against it, the first one to rush forward may be in some danger, but the benefits are also the greatest. The emperor still shook his head and excused himself for the Queen Mother, refusing to conduct a thorough investigation. For a while, the situation became anxious again. Some people who are not willing to risk taking sides, or who are not clean and are afraid of being implicated, can't help but engage in saucy operations. Because Li Lauer claimed to be ill, the door to the Earl's mansion was tightly closed. Unless it was an emergency, the side door would not be opened. But on this day, at 3 o'clock in the morning, someone came to visit in a carriage. The boy guarding the door heard the door being knocked, so he opened a small window on the door and asked loudly, "Who's knocking on the door? Is there anything wrong?" There was a woman standing outside the door. She smiled and stuffed a purse through the small window, and whispered, "Excuse me, brother, please tell your young lady that my wife is visiting." As she spoke, she handed over another name card. The boy didn't know what happened to the visitor and didn't dare to stop him, so he responded and ran to report the news. Warner has been locked up in the backyard recently and has nothing to do. Apart from taking care of the children, she is doing needlework to pass the time. The weather is getting hot, let me sew some summer dresses for my sister-in-law. My son is naughty and needs to change into several sets of clothes a day. The family's caravan was about to set off again, and she wanted to get some robes for her husband who was far away in the southwest. Even in Quanzhou, she also wanted to show her filial piety. Even though my aunt and brothers and sisters are all there, Grandma will definitely have enough clothes and shoes. But what belongs to others is what belongs to others, and what is hers is hers. At this moment, the maids and women had nothing to do, so they all got together to help pick fabrics and embroidery threads. There are 3 women in a play. If there are too many women, gossip will naturally be the inseparable main theme. It was just as lively as it was when a post suddenly came in, and Warner was still very confused. When I opened it, I found that the owner of the post was a lady named Feng. Warner had met her twice before at the Geo family's banquet, and she had the impression that he was an eloquent person. It seems that she is the daughter-in-law of a nephew of Mrs. Geo's family. If you are socializing outside on weekdays, just exchange a few pleasantries when you meet. In this current situation, Mrs. Feng, who is not too familiar with it, comes to visit. What is going on? Warner frowned. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1057. Chapter 1057. It's a big taboo to talk superficially and talk deeply. Mrs. Feng waited in the carriage for a long time, feeling a little irritable. Although there was an ice basin at home, she was reluctant to put it away when she came out. There is a drought this year, the heat is severe, there is a lack of water and even less ice. The price of 3 trucks of ice in the past is now only enough to buy 1 truck. No wonder Bianjian's ice drinks are so popular. Her heart became even hotter when she mentioned Bianjian. If what happens today happens, maybe Bianjian will change his surname in the future. As a great hero, if she wants a 10% or 20% bonus, it's not too much, right? Just as she was having a sweet dream, the car door was finally opened. The mother-in-law helped her master get out of the car with her own hands, and complained softly, "Madam, the eldest young lady of the Lee family is asking you to come in. I have made you wait for so long, this eldest lady, it's really disrespectful." Mrs. Feng was not very happy either, but she still stopped her and warned her, "Shut up and be honest today. If you mess up something big, I'll skin you when I get back." The old lady immediately shrank her neck, held the souvenir honestly, and followed her master into the side door of the Earl's mansion. The person responsible for picking up people was Wanner Wan Qiu, who was later bought into the Li family. At first, she was only responsible for needlework, but because she was careful and taciturn, she was promoted to the eldest maid by Wanner, and was given an extra job, taking care of the master's clothes and jewelry. At this time, Chengxia went to the warehouse to sort out, and she was sent to pick up the guests. Mrs. Feng said politely and followed Wan Qiu all the way to the inner courtyard, where she sat in the small flower hall and served tea. She couldn't help but look at the surrounding furnishings carefully. She saw that everything was low-key, but everything was extraordinary, and she couldn't help but have a bit of fire in her eyes. Soon, Wanner changed into a dress suitable for meeting guests and walked in. "Mrs. Feng, why do you have time to go out for a walk today? The weather is too hot, and even though my aunt said she wanted to be a guest, she never came." These words sounded affectionate, but they were actually asking Mrs. Feng what she was doing at home in such a storm. The key is that the Earl's mansion is closed to all guests, but Mrs. Feng still insists on handing in the post, just because of Mrs. Jia's face. But Mrs. Jia didn't even come to visit, yet an outsider is so shameless. Mrs. Feng did not expect Wanner to be so rude. She felt that she had been stripped of her face and was very unhappy, but she still endured it and responded, "The weather is very hot, but you can't ignore business when it's hot." Mrs. Feng took a sip of tea, thought about her words, and then said, "Wanner, although you are married, you are still a girl from the Seen family. My aunt and your aunt are sisters-in-law, so we are the same generation. You should call me sister-in-law. My family feels sorry for my family, and my sister-in-law knows that it is not easy for you to marry into the Earl's mansion. Therefore, my sister-in-law has a happy event here, and she immediately thought of you as soon as she heard about it. As long as you do it, everyone in the Li family will be grateful to you, and your life will definitely be better." Wanner didn't feel anything bad after hearing these words, but Mrs. Feng said she was excited. She looked at Wanner with burning eyes, waiting for Wanner to ask happily and gratefully. Wanner didn't speak for a long time. She really didn't know what to say. It is a taboo in communication to communicate superficially and deeply. Don't Mrs. Feng know? They just exchanged a few words when socializing, and they were no better than strangers. Now, when Mrs. Feng came up, she kept saying it was for her own good, acting like a hero. "Don't you have any brains when you go out?" She was impatient to go around in circles and ask directly, "Why did Mrs. Feng come here today? Do Madame Jia and my aunt know that you are coming?" Mrs. Feng's blood was choked in her throat and she almost suffocated. Past. She paused for a long while and then said straight to the point, "I'm here to announce the good news. Sister Xing, my husband's sister-in-law, is a girl from a branch of the Chen family. Speaking of the Chen family, I'm afraid you don't know that they are the family of Mr. Chen, the Minister of Civil Affairs. Mr. Chen's second cousin has a son who is 24 years old this year. He has passed the scholar examination and is preparing to continue his career. Big test. This young Master Chen is a handsome and courteous man, but he is a rare good man. He had been immersed in studying before, and he hasn't gotten engaged yet recently. My family wanted to find a good match for him, so they asked me to help him. I immediately thought of our princess. Although our family backgrounds are somewhat different, the princess is beautiful and smart, and the young master of the Chen family will definitely like her. To say the least, even if you don't like it, Don't be afraid when the time comes, you can bring more dowry to the princess, and you can still live a good life in the Chen family. Pa, before she could finish her words, Warner had already slammed the tea bowl in her hand, regretting extremely that she had let such an idiot in. It was a clear day and it was a bright day. It was a bad day to do something, but I actually listened to a dog barking for a long time. Shut your stinky mouth, what do you think this is? It's your turn to be wild. Warner is really mad. My sister-in-law is the treasure that the whole family holds in the palm of their hands. Not to mention such a big event as getting married, even if my sister-in-law coughs, it will be like a bed in the sky. This idiot named Feng put it nicely. The Chen family's young master is smart, studious, and has not been engaged. Compared with his father-in-law and brothers-in-law, who only took the scholar exam in his 20s, he is at the level of an idiot. How did she have the confidence to come here and blow the sky? The most important thing is that if you sincerely seek marriage, you should have the attitude of seeking marriage, lower your head, speak softly, and act like you are giving charity. This is because I stepped on dog when I went out, and I became so stinky that I went crazy. Mrs. Feng was shocked when she was scolded. Her new dress was stained with tea, which made her even more distressed. She finally couldn't pretend anymore. Scene Wainer, I came here to propose marriage to give your Li family face. It's okay if you can't make the decision, so why are you yelling at me? No wonder people say that you Li family was born in a muddy family and is just uneducated. She stood up and was about to leave, but she didn't forget to say harsh words. I'm telling you, there won't be the store after passing this village. Even Mr. Chen's family doesn't like it. I want to see that shrew of yours. Where can the Lord marry in the future? After saying that, she turned around, and screamed. It turned out that Warner had quick eyes and quick hands. She pulled her bun from behind and kicked her behind the legs. Mrs. Feng knelt down at that time. I'll let you act wild, I'll let you run wild, I'll let you spit shit. Warner was so angry that she lost all reason. All the ladylike upbringing and rules she'd had since elementary school were forgotten. People are breaking into the house and coming to make trouble. If she doesn't fight back, she is simply not worthy of being a human being. Wan Qiu and a few other little maids have been very angry for a long time. Now that the master has taken action, how can they still watch the fun? So, 7 or 8 people, big and small, surrounded Mrs. Feng and started scratching her. The wife of the Feng family was yelling and screaming to help her master, but she was immediately pulled aside and taught how to behave alone. Hit me hard. You can't spit out ivory from your dog's mouth, you can arrange our princess as you like. The Chen family has given you the courage to come to our house to bully others. I'll scratch you to death and make you embarrassed to go out in the future. Warner was relieved to see the maids beating her hard, and even lifted her skirt to add some kicks. When she turned around, she saw Mr. Wen and her father-in-law standing outside the door, with surprised and confused expressions on their faces. Warner was petrified for a moment, then quickly retracted her feet and straightened her messy hair in embarrassment. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1058. Chapter 1058, Aunt and nephew join hands and invite themselves to the hall. Ahem, Li Lauer coughed twice and asked, what happened? Wan Qiu and others were startled and quickly stepped back, revealing the gourd-like master and servant of Mrs. Feng. Before Warner could respond, Mrs. Feng had already crazily climbed to the threshold and shouted at the top of her lungs. Uncle Li, please help, your daughter-in-law is going to kill someone, I'm a guest, and she's going to kill me. Warner was very uneasy. Although she was justified in today's matter, it was not honorable to hit someone. Without wanting to, Li Lauer called Zheng He directly behind him and ordered, tie these 2 people up first and gag them. Don't delay your family's speech. Zheng He immediately stepped forward and tied Mrs. Feng's master and servant into rice dumplings. Mrs. Feng thought that rescue had arrived, but she didn't expect that she was an accomplice of the enemy. Her mouth opened wide in shock, which made it easier for Zheng He to stuff the rag. Woo, 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 woo. Mrs. Feng twisted wildly, expressing her anger. What a pity, no one paid any attention to her. Li Lao turned to his daughter-in-law and asked, "What's going on?" Wanner quickly recounted what had just happened. When Mrs. Feng belittled her sister-in-law, she really wanted to kick her a few more times. Li Lao and Mr. Wen both changed their faces with anger. Mr. Wen scolded, "What a bastard! Some people are afraid that they will be caught by the tail. They want to drag our family into the water and use it as a talisman to save their lives." Li Lao nodded and said coldly, "They made the wrong idea." The two looked at each other and reached a unanimous decision in an instant. "We must fight back, otherwise I am afraid that what happened today will happen again and again. Even if the Li family doesn't want to get involved, they may not be able to help themselves when the time comes. Daughter-in-law Jiaren, you haven't gone to Jia's house to see your aunt for a long time, haven't you? It's just a good time to go there today to relax. Family members should move around more often. Things will get worse and worse in the future, and it won't be easy even if you want to go." Mr. Wen glanced at Mrs. Feng and secretly suggested that Wanner should file a complaint. Wanner had this plan. Her aunt was always suppressed by the eldest sister-in-law in the Jia family. Now that such a ready opportunity to slap her in the face was presented to her, of course she had to leave it to her aunt and vent her anger on her aunt's behalf. But she still looked at her father-in-law hesitantly. Li Lao smiled and said the same, "It's hard to go there and talk to your aunt more. In addition, if you encounter something like this in the future, do it when you need to do it. Don't worry. Your grandma and aunts are not at home, and Jiaren has gone out. You are the only female member of our family walking around, and there is no one to help you. If you are not more aggressive, you will be easily bullied. Our Li family is not afraid of our daughter-in-law being aggressive, but we are afraid of being bullied and clinging to her reputation as a virtuous idiot." After saying that, he and Mr. Wen returned to the front yard, leaving Wanner silent for a while, her eye circles slowly turning red. She probably saved more than 10 lifetimes of merit to be able to marry into the Li family in this life. "Prepare the carriage, let's go to Jia's house." Lei Chiu and others immediately took action, packed their things, took Mrs. Feng's master and servants, and went out in a hurry. The whole Xindu is in turmoil. As long as there is no big event, no one will go out, and the Jia family is no exception. It is rare for Mr. Jia and Mr. Jia to get together to have tea and chat. When Mrs. Jia heard about it, she asked someone to take a jade melon and cut it open. Half of it was given to the old lady, and the other half was sent to the study to quench the thirst of her husband and eldest brother. Mrs. Niu, who usually served Mrs. Jia personally, advised, "Madam, this jade melon is specially sent by my cousin to honor you. You, share it, everyone has thought of it, but I can't bear to eat a piece." The second lady waved her hand and said with a smile, "If the treasure was at home, I would definitely not give it away. After all, it would not be enough for her to eat. But the treasure was taken by her great aunt, and only such a good thing is left. The old lady has lost her appetite recently. The master and the eldest master are discussing business, and they should eat more. Mr. Niu has been with her master for many years. She knows that no matter how hard she tries to persuade her, she has no choice but to get busy." As a result, at this time, the rough lady from the second gate came to report the news. "Madam, my cousin is here. She looks bad, and she also brought Mrs. Feng." "Mrs. Feng?" Mrs. Jia didn't react for a moment, but Mrs. Niu reminded her, "Is this Mrs. Feng the nephew-in-law of the eldest wife's natal family?" Yes, The rough lady nodded quickly and added in a low voice, "They came tied up." At this moment, everyone's expressions changed. Mrsger led people to welcome him out in person. At this moment, Warner had already walked halfway, and when she saw the aunt who loved her the most, she burst into tears. "Auntie, I'm going to be so angry." The eldest wife's nephew and daughter-in-law actually ran into our house and ran wild, and even alarmed my father-in-law and Mr. Wen. I really have no shame in my husband's family. If I don't handle this matter well today, I will kill myself. Please come down. What nonsense are you talking about, this silly boy? Your husband's family treats you like a treasure, and is reluctant to say a harsh word. Your husband is still the top scholar in a new subject, and the eyes of others are red with envy. You actually have to invite yourself to the court. If you don't act like this anymore, I'll beat you on behalf of your parents. Mrsger felt sorry for her niece. She hugged her and tried to persuade and scare her. Mrs. Feng, who was tied into a rice dumpling, was so angry that she was whimpering when she saw that they had been talking for a long time and no one came to rescue her. Mrsger seemed to have just seen her and asked her niece, "What's going on?" Warner immediately wiped her tears and said briefly. Mrsger's second wife turned dark at that time and cursed, "That's not bad. She's just going crazy." She turned around and called Mrs. Niu, "Go to the study and call the eldest and second masters to the old lady's yard, and don't leave the eldest lady behind either. If we don't have a good talk today, no one will make the decision for our aunt and nephew. I'll ask myself to come down too." Mrs. Niu responded and turned away. Mrsg then called for someone to carry Mrs. Feng's servants and went straight to the main courtyard. For every master, there must be a servant. Mrsg's fiery temper, and the personal mother-in-law whom she valued, were certainly not a good person. So Mr. Jia and his elder brother were playing chess, fighting hard to determine the winner, when they heard that his daughter-in-law was going to invite herself to the court. Nonsense. On a good day, the child is so old, what's the point of bringing him to court? Mr. Jia cursed fiercely, but threw away the chess piece and went straight to the backyard, leaving his elder brother behind. Mrs. Jia also knows that the two daughters-in-law are not in harmony, and occasionally she will make peace with them if they have conflicts. But today's matter obviously cannot be fooled. Soon, everyone arrived. Mrsg became anxious when she saw her nephew-in-law outside the door. "Ziozi, why are you here?" Mrsger's mouth was never inferior to anyone's, and she immediately responded loudly, "Sister-in-law, your niece-in-law is very patient. Not to mention being so presumptuous in our Geo family, she just went to the Earl's mansion to take charge of the Earl's mansion." Got it? She not only took away the face of the Feng family, but also your face, and even the face of our whole family. I really don't know who gave her such courage. Second brother and sister, don't be so arrogant, please speak clearly. Mrsg was a little annoyed by the stabbing, and she couldn't care less about her dignified image and shouted angrily. 2 updates today. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1059. Chapter 1059. I must give an explanation. Okay, then I listened to my sister-in-law and I must explain it to you. Mrsger felt happy and proud. She turned and winked at her niece. Warner actually wanted to tell her personally, but she was concerned about her identity. She sitting here now is not the daughter of the Singh family, but the eldest daughter-in-law of the Earl's mansion. So, Late Autumn was called out to recreate the previous events vividly. This girl is really reliable at critical moments. Her usual taciturnity has not changed much, but her words are concise, and every word touches her heart. Mrs. Feng made it clear how she came to the door forcefully, how she relied on the Jia family's in-laws to negotiate matters, how she belittled the Li family and the princess. This time, everyone from Mrs. Jia to Mr. Jia and Mr. Jia changed their expressions and gritted their back molars angrily. Mrs. Jia even wants to find a crack in the ground to crawl in. This niece-in-law from her natal family usually likes to take advantage of others, but she is sweet and coaxing, which she likes. Who would have thought that my nephew-in-law was so confused that she would get into such a disaster? Others don't know Princess Kangle's status in the Li family, how can the Jia family not know? If the princess was so easy to marry, the Jia family, the Lu family, and countless other families would have already broken their heads and rushed to fight for it. Isn't it just that you feel unworthy? Taking a step back, even if the Chen family wanted to marry, they should find a good matchmaker. Why did they find the Feng family? Probably because the Feng family and the Jia family are related by marriage. They went out to test the Li family's reaction. Even if the Li family was angry, the Jia family would still be there to support them. Mr. Jia slapped the table angrily and cursed in a low voice, "These cheap things are really well calculated. This is to measure the relationship between our family and the Earl's mansion, and use us as a shield." Mr. Jia also said, "Yes, Warner came to the door to make it clear. Otherwise, there will be a rift between the Li family and our family in the future, and our family still doesn't know what happened." Mrs. Jia sneered, glanced at her sister-in-law, who always followed the rules, and gloated, "My sister-in-law's family is really lucky, and all the daughters-in-law she married are very mean-spirited. You, my little niece-in-law, are working hard for your mother's family, and you are inciting your other idiot nephew-in-law to come forward, and in the name of our family, you have angered the Li family and intend to marry the princess to a dandy. What a good plan. Have you forgotten, sister-in-law, the princess' father is the general of the Northern Expedition Army, and the princess' adoptive father is the commander-in-chief of the Northern Expedition Army, and your Jia Dun is still taking orders from the Northern Expedition Army." Jaden. Mrs. Jia was so weak that she fell to the ground. She really forgot about this. Mrs. Jia, Mr. Jia, and Mr. Jia were also panicked. What a sin, what a sin. Mrs. Jia slapped the table, pointed at her eldest daughter-in-law and cursed, "I don't care what method you use today, you must handle this matter well. It really annoyed the Li family and brought trouble to my grandson. Son, I will divorce you and go out. Aren't you, the Feng family, very clever and good at playing tricks? Just go back and play with them." Mrs. Jia quickly begged for mercy, "Mom, please calm down. My daughter-in-law really doesn't know about this, and she never thought that her family would be so presumptuous. My daughter-in-law must handle this matter well." As she spoke, she looked at Mr. Jia again, but unfortunately Mr. Jia didn't say a word. Fortunately, Jia Su heard the news and rushed over at this time. He usually likes to be quiet and lives in a courtyard in the corner of the house. It took some effort to get there. As soon as he entered the door, he only glanced at it and knew it in his mind. Hence, he was extremely fortunate that his father was on duty at the Ministry of War and his mother went back to his maternal home to take care of his sick grandmother, so he didn't have to wade through this muddy water. "Grandma, what's going on? You have to take care of yourself. Our family is counting on you to be in charge if anything happens. Let's talk it over and we can always solve it properly, right?" Jia Su stepped forward to help Mrs. Jia. Mrs. Jia seemed to have grasped a life-saving straw. She grabbed her grandson's hand and shouted, "Listen quickly, it makes me mad. Those black-hearted things from the Feng family are actually, the trap has been brought upon our family, Brother Dun is going to be killed." Mr. Jia remembered that his nephew got along very well with Li Jiaran, and felt a little more hopeful, so he quickly said a few words. Jia Su immediately grasped the key point and said, "In the final analysis, the Chen family acted unethically. The Feng family was instigated, and our family was kept in the dark. In the end, the Li family was angry and the princess sister was wronged. He stepped forward, saluted Wan'er, and solemnly apologized. Sister-in-law, what happened today has put you in a difficult situation. Our family will definitely explain it to the Earl's mansion, so please don't worry. Wan'er watched it for a while, then sighed secretly. The show was about to end. There is another smart man in the Geo family. It seems that he can only vent his anger on his aunt today, but this is the end of it. She stood up, bowed in return, and said, Master Jia, there is no need to be so polite. Speaking of which, the friendship between our two families cannot be destroyed by outsiders using any means. Besides, my aunt is still here just so that I can visit her often in the future. I will also persuade my husband's family and not express my anger. But the Feng family, it's best not to appear in front of our family in the future, otherwise it will really ruin the friendship between our two families. Okay, thank you. Jiasu saluted and thanked him again, and finally walked to the family and whispered, I will accompany my eldest aunt back to Feng's house. This matter cannot be forgotten easily. In this situation, there is something wrong. It is the disaster of annihilation. Before the Feng family acted, they didn't consider the safety of our family and my eldest aunt at all. It's better not to move around with such relatives in the future. What do eldest aunt think? Mrs. Gio was trembling in her heart. As a woman, how could she be willing to break off her relationship with her natal family? But the malice in front of her did not allow her to be vague and procrastinating, so she could only nod. Soon, Gia's carriage left the door. Mrs. Gia took her nephew and her niece-in-law, who was still tied up, and ran to her parents' house to settle the score with another niece-in-law. Wan'er said a few words to Mrs. Gia, comforted her, and then followed her aunt to her yard. Mrs. Gia drank 2 cups of herbal tea in one breath and clapped her hands with a smile. My sister-in-law has no bad intentions, but she is so annoying when she puts on airs. Today I saw her change of attitude. No matter how smart she is, her mother-in-law is too stupid to be able to stand up to her, and they are a bunch of hindrances. Wan'er couldn't laugh or cry when she heard that. She poured tea for her aunt and whispered, Aunt, you have to be merciful and merciful. Today is a coincidence, so I took advantage of the opportunity to help you vent your anger. But think about Bezu and Uncle, we can't go too far. Don't worry, I'm not stupid. Mrs. Gia stopped laughing and asked seriously, Wan'er, are your father-in-law and the others really angry? This matter really hurts our friendship. When the news outside passes, I will definitely come and apologize. No, Aunt, don't think too much, Wan'er said with a smile. My father-in-law is very sensible. This debt must be settled on the Chen family and the Feng family, and he will not anger your family. In addition, the princess and Bezu are as close as sisters. Even for Bezu's sake, the princess will not care about it. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1060. Chapter 1060, Being a Spy is Not a Good Job. Mrs. Gia finally felt relieved and asked, speaking of the Chen family, is it the same Miss Chen's family who lost her poem to the princess at the summer banquet in the palace and was slapped? Exactly, Wan'er nodded. So, the reason for this matter is very complicated. The Chen family came to test it, and they must have thought that if our family agreed, they would have the opportunity to avenge their precious daughter in the future. Dream, Mrs. Gia pouted, a girl as good as the princess cannot marry a dandy and a good-for-nothing. The aunt and nephew talked for a while, had lunch, and finally waited for the eldest lady and Jiasu to come back. The eldest lady's eyes were red and swollen, and it was obvious that she had broken with her natal family. After all, the Feng family is more willing to protect 2 grandsons-in-law than a married girl. It's not that the Feng family doesn't feel sorry for their daughter, it's just that the daughter has thrown the water away, but the grandson's daughter-in-law has opened up branches and leaves for the Feng family. I don't know whether she didn't want to face her family, or she was really sad, but the eldest lady fell ill when she returned to the yard. Jiasu was left to tell everyone the result. The Feng family only punished the two granddaughter-in-laws to shut themselves up and think about their mistakes. If they were pushed too hard, Mr. Feng would start blaming our family for making a fuss out of a molehill. That's the only way. Mrs. Jia was very angry and said angrily, "From now on, this relationship will be broken, and the Feng family will not be allowed to visit again." Mr. Jia also nodded, "It's better not to move around, so as not to burden the family. Wanner can't sit down any longer. She has to go home after the results are obtained. The Jia family has already prepared a generous gift." Wanner refused to accept it, but the Jia family insisted on giving it. In the end, Mrs. Jia persuaded her niece in a low voice, "These things are given by the eldest lady for the Feng family. Don't take them for nothing. Just take them, otherwise she will probably feel a heavier burden." Wanner just accepted it, bid farewell to the Jia family and returned to the Earl's mansion. The two families were not too far apart, and within a quarter of an hour, the carriage arrived in front of their house. As soon as Wanner got out of the car, she heard a dog barking and thought she had gone to the wrong place. Li Lauer and Mr. Wen were both standing in the front yard, smiling and watching a few boys feeding the dogs. At some point, there were 4 big dogs in the house. One dog was guarding a basin and was gnawing meat and bones. Its tail was so happy that it almost turned into a fan. Each big dog is half a person tall and weighs 70 to 80 pounds. It has pure black fur and bright eyes. It looks very majestic, but a little thin. "Dad, Mr. Wen, where did these dogs come from?" Wanner was a little scared, leaning against the wall, and bravely walked over. "Muju came back just now. He heard that someone was proposing marriage to Fu Niuer, so he went out to find these big dogs, saying they were keeping them in the front yard. If any evil guests came to the door again, he would let the dogs bite them." Li, the second child, smiled and shook his head, obviously thinking this method was childish, but he felt comfortable in his heart. Muju is very attentive to good news and will not tolerate any coveting from others. Wanner also laughed after hearing this, and whispered, "He is afraid that someone will his wife away." Mr. Wen stepped forward and added meat bones to a big dog with his own hands. The big dog sniffed his hand and continued to eat happily. Mr. Wen smiled and said, "These dogs are very smart. They recognize their own family members by identifying their scent. I wonder where Muju got them." He went on errands with Zheng He. Before he could say anything more, he just said that the previous owner of these dogs couldn't afford to keep them, so if they were sent to our house, they would be considered safe, otherwise they would starve to death. Li Lauer responded, "Let's raise some in our house first, and then send 2 back to the village. Uncle Zhao and the others patrol at night, so they can be good helpers. If my sister is at home, she will definitely be happy. These cats and dogs also like to get close to her. If nothing else, Santiago is almost spoiled by her." Wanner missed her sister-in-law a little, so she said a few words with a smile and let her go. People give the big dogs a place to live. Unfortunately, she was wrong this time. In Highland Palace, the good news was nodding at the little fox's forehead, feeling extremely disgusted. "You said it was great for me to have a parrot. At least I could talk to you. Why did I raise a parrot like you? Look, let me ask you for some news. What did you tell me?" Cucumber went to see Old Sweet Potato, and Old Sweet Potato wanted to kill Eggplant. "Fortunately, I am quite smart and remember the color of the clothes they were wearing when I introduced you to them, otherwise I would have thought it was a fight between fruits and vegetables. Learn to write right away." Sanjiao shrank his neck as he was scolded, and his little eyes were red. Engineering intelligence is really not a good job. Fox life is difficult. It is also a top-notch existence among foxes, and it is not king and hegemon wherever it goes. Now I am actually disliked by a little girl. It's a shame that it runs around every day, wasting so much time sleeping and eating fruit, helping to find out information, and yet it still needs to be criticized like this. It turned its head and pointed it towards its master, refusing to show its face. This was the first time Ji-yin saw the little fox losing her temper. She blinked twice and felt a little guilty. Are you being too harsh on your furry child? Well, ahem, three little darlings, I couldn't guess what you meant just now, so I spoke more harshly because I was a little anxious. Ji-yin quickly hugged the little fox and coaxed her softly. Look, we have been together for many years. If others don't understand my temper, how can you understand it? I like you the most and treat you best. There are so many fruits in space that no one else can eat them. You squat on the tree every day and eat whatever you want. Also, your dried meat, dried fish, and fish cakes are all made by me, right? You are angry with me just because of a few words. Are you too stingy? This is not what a smart and generous fox should do. The little fox was coaxed to smooth its fur, gradually raised its head, and chirped proudly. Ji-yin quickly continued, I asked you to learn to write for your own good. Think about it, if you learn how to write, you will be the only fox in the world who can write. How proud, how proud. The little fox has bright eyes. Shui Lingro was sweating. He brought freshly baked snacks from outside and went into the house. He saw Sanjo raising his right paw, dipping ink in the inkstone, and patiently following the copybook, tracing red. She was so shocked that her feet went weak and she almost dropped the tray in her hand. Is competition so fierce these days? Do foxes have to learn to write? Then she has to roll up too, otherwise she will be eliminated sooner or later. Thinking about the fact that there is no place for her next to the master, the little girl is not feeling well. Ji-yin didn't notice that Shui Ling was frightened by her secret thoughts. She was frowning and sighing. The situation is getting more and more serious. It would be great if her adoptive father is in Zindu, why would she bother her so much? Uncle Huang will clean up 2 today and 3 tomorrow. He is about to clean up the court. The man will soon step out from behind the scenes and shock everyone's jaws. She could not predict whether this person being in power would be a good thing or a bad thing for the family, but she just felt uneasy. I don't know whether the Feng family is too low-key or the Chen family is afraid of losing face. In short, the fact that Mrs. Feng went to the Earl's mansion to propose marriage for the Chen family's young master was not spread out. Those who also consider themselves smart also think of the Li family as a good shield. So, on the second day, someone came to propose marriage. But this time, the visitor did not have Mrs. Feng's good luck. The boy at the gate of the Earl's mansion asked carefully. As soon as he heard the word proposing marriage, the 4 dogs who had just settled down yesterday were quickly put on duty. As soon as the side door opened, 4 big dogs rushed out like 4 leopards, barking wildly while catching and biting anyone. 2 updates today. End of this chapter.